Welcome back to the Georgia Show. You know, Bill, I have found, and as you've said many times, if you keep sticking to the truth, you'll be in the right lane and everything will come together and kind of coalesce in the end. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing now, don't you?
We just talked about this, I think, last show. It seems so odd that things we spoke of a couple of years ago are now coming back into focus in a new perspective, but it begins to complete the picture like a puzzle.
It's totally true. And this is happening across the network of CDM in multiple facets. You'll be hearing, I think, some of that as things drop further going forward. But this show is the Georgia Show. We're brought to you by the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. Great journalism. I would call it investigative journalism. We don't cover everything, but we cover what's important and what you need to know. You can help us in that effort by signing up for our no ad subscriptions. And that's the block that Bill has up there. You click on that, you get access to all of our sites with no advertisements. That's 13 plus sites. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. And we get a lot of good feedback on that and continuing subscription. So that's really helping us not count on Pfizer or the GOP or anyone to fund us. We fund ourselves. So thank you for that, Bill. I know this is going to be a packed show, but how do you want to run this?
So we're going to hear up first from David Cross. David is on the way. He's probably just getting ready to begin a presentation down in Thomasville County. And he told me that's about 30 miles north of Tallahassee. So you can imagine what kind of drive that was. And we'll get some updates from him in terms of what he's heard in the last few days. And again, his message as it begins to really resonate with folks from what we can tell over the last few days. We're going to also go back and listen very closely to some things that were said back at the beginning of the month during one of the candidate forums. And then we're going to delve into the data. And we think that that's very important because it shows whether we are being told the right facts or not. And if not, that begins to say, well, why not? And, is there more that we need to delve into? We'll also get the chance to hear from Hank Sullivan. Hank has published, I believe, 2 more Substacks this week where he goes into depth. And just like we just described, he is beginning to paste together concepts that he covered in some cases over a year ago, and now showing how they fit together given what we see emerging literally in the last few days. So it will be indeed a packed show, and we think that as we go forward and get closer to the convention, it's getting more and more important for folks to know these facts so that they can make informed and logical choices in terms of the folks they wish to be in leadership roles in the Georgia GOP going forward.
Completely agree. And one of the ways we continue this programming is with our fantastic sponsors. I'm going to run a quick ad from ALP, our new sponsor with Tucker Carlson. I know there's some Zen users out there in Georgia, but you need to ditch the Zen, the woke Zen, and try the ALP. And here we go.
I'll give you a plug for ALP right now. So if you talk about one of the worst companies that's out there,
America's greatest nicotine pouch,
America's lip pillow. But who is your biggest competitor?
That would be the Zyn Corporation.
Zyn. Do you know who owns Zyn?
I do.
So it's Philip Morris International.
Yep.
They are operationally headquartered in Switzerland. On their website to this day, you go on their website today, they have a massive diversity, equity, inclusion piece that is on their website. They have that, and I would say it's I'll call it the worst aspects of DEI, which can be quota systems, race-based systems. And on their website today, they say we're going to hire 20% of our people we want to be Asian. Literally on their website, just 20%. They want 40% women. I mean, literally quota systems they have on their website today. But the other piece is that on their website, and this is a company that makes Marlboro cigarettes and Zyn and other things, is so they're like one of their big partners for Pride Month that's coming up is the Stonewall Org. And Stonewall Org is one of these LGBTQ plus organizations, and fine, you can do that, but like they are advocating for biological men to compete against women in sports. But this is what's crazy is that and I think this is the problem about where we're going is
what does that have to keep that out of my mouth? I mean, this is like a.
Anyway, back to you, Bill.
Okay. So first up, we're going to hear from David Cross again. He's traveling. So we get a chance to connect while in the car on his way down to Thomasville. We were lucky enough to be able to catch up with David Cross, who is on his way to a meeting in one of the counties this evening. Where are you headed, David?
Thomasville, Georgia. I think we're going to be maybe 30 miles north of Tallahassee.
30 miles north of Tallahassee. So, that's a pretty good little drive from Atlanta. So that sounds fun. So in the last few days, you've appeared a number of different places. What kinds of questions are you hearing most often right now?
The biggest question I'm getting is, or a recurring theme is, there's so many people that were involved in Trump Force 47, and those grassroots people are not showing back up at the county party. How are we going to recruit them to get re-involved? Because we're going to literally have to recreate Trump Force 47 with something I call Georgia Force 26, and that's the way that we're going to win in 2026.
One of the things that we've noted and we're just looking at it again tonight, is so much of the funding for Trump Force 47 came from that organization, and it was used to actually compensate the folks that were leading the Trump Force 47 initiatives in counties and areas all over the state. So this has two facets to it, it would seem. One is getting the people involved. Two are the resources necessary. And you in past days, I think, have spoken about the challenges there. Why don't you bring us up to speed there?
All right. So as far as funding goes, one of the things that people don't seem to understand is that in 2023 and 2024, the Georgia GOP raised about $3 million organically. Not 23 million, but 3 million. And listen, I'm a numbers guy and a money guy. To me, that sounds like a rounding error for the 8th largest economy in the United States of America. So we've got to get those numbers boosted up, and I've got plans and initiatives in order to to accomplish that. One of those things is going to be called the $20 1% plan, and what that involves is, if we can get 1%, just 1% of all the Republicans across the state to donate $20 per month, that will bring in $400,000 per month in revenue to the Georgia GOP. That equates out to that's $4.8 million exactly, and that's before you even go out and ask for big donations. That's just the grassroots. That's what the grassroots is capable of doing. We can do that.
That's an interesting number too. It doesn't sound like it's a very big jump for many people, and it's a relatively small number of folks too. So 4.8 million, and that would be an annual number, wouldn't it?
That would be annualized. And the only way that that's going to happen is if people feel like their money and their time is not being wasted. And the way that we're going to accomplish that is going to be by doging the Georgia GOP. We're going to find out. We're going to audit the books, and we're going to figure out, where is money being wasted? Where could it be more efficiently spent? We've got contracts right now that are going to the chairman's karaoke partner. There's no bidding on contracts. We've got to go back to sound business policies and practices that any business owner would do themselves.
You would think so. I mean, that, and if you look at what Trump and his team have done, they've taken much more of a business approach, haven't they? And it seems to be paying huge dividends.
Well, what's happening right now is that, I think what's going to ultimately happen with Trump stuff is we're probably going to see our income taxes are going to go down. The revenue that's coming into the United States Treasury is going to go up. And at the same time, I think we're going to see deficit spending reduced. All of those things are going to be fantastic for the United States of America. And we can do the same thing in Georgia and the Georgia GOP.
So one of the things that you have to take into account now is I'm listening to folks calling in and sending emails and asking questions. Part of this is the numbers, and part of this is the strange expenses that have shown up that we've covered in previous airings and in posts and so forth. There now seems to be this unwillingness to answer questions, even from those who have an absolute right to ask questions. Now, you could make a case for really any of us asking the GOP questions about how things were done, why were they done, who was involved, and so forth. But in the last 48 hours, the RNC National Committee woman from Georgia, Amy Kremer, has said that 2 weeks ago, she sent an email letter to Josh McKoon and Karen Henschel and copied several others, asking questions regarding some of these spendings and also who was involved in certain travel and so forth. 2 weeks have gone by. She got no response.
Right.
That to many, as of this morning, is raising alarms, because why would you not answer one of the top three officials in the Georgia political picture on the Republican Party? I mean, Amy, and in her position, I believe, demand an answer to these, and yet they've gone silent. It seems remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, even with me, I've asked for the list of all the county chairs across the state. I'm the second vice chairman of the Georgia GOP. I should be able to have access to the information. I'm a candidate for the chairman's office, and the Georgia GOP is denying me access to the current list of county chairmen. It's inexcusable, and it borders on negligence in terms of the Georgia GOP fulfilling its duties, basically to ballot access. I mean, we are a Title 21, we are a Title 21 election-oriented organization. We are governed by election law. And I don't have access to that information, and Amy doesn't have access to the way the money's been spent. She's asking for it, and she deserves it, and she's being ignored just the same way I'm being ignored. And under my administration, that is not going to happen.
So some people, I heard in Muskogee County last night, I heard comments regarding, well, these are just things that they just work a particular way, but that's not what this is it? These are going against, in some cases, potentially against the rules of the GOP, but potentially against Georgia law, doesn't it? It seems to violate certain Georgia laws that command the way things are done, as you said, in political parties.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We are the Republican Party of Georgia. We represent Republican values and Republican strength across the United States. We should be setting the standard for how people are treated, not mistreating them and ignoring them. This is inexcusable, and it all comes down to leadership. Leadership under the current administration is about basically keeping a tight rein on a dictatorship. Leadership with me as the chairman is going to be about truth, trust, and transparency. We're going to have open records to the point where I'm going to have the financial records and a financial report published on the Georgia GOP website every quarter. I want people to know that they can trust where their money's going to, and that it's going to good causes that are supporting getting Republicans elected throughout the state.
You touched on something, timeliness and frequency of things. One of the concerns that came up about a week ago was the certification of certain candidates that seemed to have been done, but typically would be done at the after an executive committee meeting, which is a number of folks, not just the chairman. And yet there has been no executive committee meeting yet. Letters of certification have been issued for certain candidates. Those don't seem to mesh somehow. Have you learned any more on that in the last few days?
I have no idea. All right. So here's the thing. Our current executive committee hasn't gotten together since August of last year. We don't have regular meetings. We don't know what's going on. And even the chairman's expenditures, his accidental expenditures, that he says is like an errant one or two, turns out to be that it's 12 things. If I was the chairman and I did that, I would have an executive committee meeting to let people know what happened, what's going on, so that people can address it, in a straightforward, accurate way. But instead, we're all kind of left to our own devices to figure things out that are going on inside the Georgia GOP through social media. That's idiotic.
Yeah. One of the things you just touched on too is a remaining question. That is, there are expenses that are showing up that appear to be in some cases personally related, private personal training with a gym and so forth, and perhaps clothing and other things. there should be, if these were paid for by some sort of reimbursement, as Josh McKoon has claimed in several instances, that reimbursement should also be reported and seen. Wouldn't you think? There should be really two transactions here, not just one. And
Yeah.
yet those proof of this reimbursement is not seen to be forthcoming yet. And we wonder why.
Yeah, I do too. I haven't seen anything, and the reality is under my administration, I'm not even going to be carrying the Georgia GOP credit card. I'm going to put all party expenses are going to be on a separate personal card for me, and I'm going to make sure that I've gotten authorization in advance to be able to have those expenditures, and I'm going to turn in an expense report the way that you do in a business.
I know the way that I did as well for 30 years, I suppose, and is the standard for making sure that you have appropriate tracking, governance, and financial controls. So you're heading to Thomasville, I believe you said today. Where are you off to the rest of the week?
Tomorrow we have got Paulding County. And then Friday night, it's really rare to have anything going on in any county parties on a Friday evening. But just in case, I made sure that I sent out an email to all the county chairs whose emails that I think I have. I mean, I'm guessing at what they are, but I sent out an email with a link to a 7.5 minute long video that just kind of tells what my message is, what my platform is, and what we're going to accomplish.
Okay, that sounds
and then
great.
next week we got a couple days too, but it's coming. We're rounding third base right now.
Yeah, we have. With each passing day, it seems like there's precious little time left before we get to the state convention. Any last thoughts for our folks?
You know what? All I can tell you is that when this whole thing started, I think I was viewed as an irrelevant throwaway candidate because I haven't been involved in the party for a long time. But you know what? There's a ton of grassroots people that are out there across the state that I'm meeting where they're going to this conventions for the specific reason of electing me so that their voice can be heard. I'm not trying to become the next chairman of the Georgia GOP so that I can climb up the ladder. I'm trying to become the people's next chairman so that they can get done what we need to do, the business of the party. And I want to be their chairman. This is not some kind of placeholder for me. This is about saving our country, doing the very best that we can for our state, and making our elections more secure as well too.
Well, that sounds
There's a
great.
lot of work to do.
With each passing day, we unfortunately seem to uncover more work that needs to be cleaned up. All right. Well, thank you for making a few minutes as you're traveling. We will look forward to hearing updates and see what the next steps hold. So thank you again.
Be sure to go to my website, crossforga.com, so you can see what the initiatives are, and let me know if there's something you'd like to be involved in.
Sure will. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Great interview, Bill.
It was. I wondered whether we would actually be able to connect given where he was at the time, but we had a reasonably decent connection. We were able to have a good discussion.
That's a long drive down through a lot of nothing.
Yeah. Shall we hear from one of our sponsors?
Yeah, I want to just do a quick, shout out to our sister paper, the Manhattan.press. And if you go to the Manhattan.press, top right corner, you can see the Manhattan bestsellers list. The New York Times has a bestsellers list. It's biased. For instance, Alex Jones didn't get on the list when he had the best-selling book in the country a few years back. This is only the best books or the most selling books in the country. We have editors' picks, children's editors' picks, adult nonfiction, fiction, politics, history, young adult fiction and nonfiction. All of it just the best-selling books. There's liberal books on here. It's just books that people want to read. So, go there. If you're going to buy your next book, you can buy it here. You can find the book you want and go to the checkout button and buy it from us. Why pay Amazon when you can pay free media and get what you need at the same time? And any book that you need for work, for whatever, you can buy at cdm.press at the CDM bookstore, the CDM bookshop. I'll just go there. You just search in the top here for the book, and it's there, and you can buy it, and you can support us instead of the dark side. So thank you, Bill. That's all I had.
Okay. So again, our theme for the show this evening is ask for truth, but get sleight of hand. And you'll see in just a few moments why we're calling it that. I'm going to play a videotape from one of the candidate forums that was held in Cobb County back at the beginning of May. And I want you to listen very closely to what is said. And we're going to go delve into that and take a look at what the facts indicate based on what you're about to hear. So here's the video clip.
So you're going to hear two contrasting visions this evening. You just heard 4 minutes on the Georgia Republican Party, and you did not hear Donald J. Trump. The goal in 2024 of the Georgia Republican Party was to elect Donald J. Trump President of the United States and to carry Georgia for Donald Trump. And we did that. And I want to talk for a minute about the trends. You know, if you think about it, the political organization in a lot of ways, it's like a football team. It's a team sport. And in 2018, our team won. We got Governor Kemp over the finish line. The certified result of that election, 45,000 vote win. 2020, the certified result of that election was about a 12,000 vote loss. 2024, the certified result of that election was a 115,000 vote victory for Georgia Republicans. That came by having leadership and implementing a winning strategy. You know, we had one of the best field programs in the nation. In the Trump Force 47 program, if you met a Trump Force 47 staffer, that was a Georgia Republican Party employee. If you went to a Trump Force 47 office, that was leased by the Georgia Republican Party. We organized thousands of people. We focused on low propensity voters that we knew if we could get them into the ballot box, they would vote for Donald Trump. And we got over 4 million people to vote early in this election. And of those 4 million people, 800,000 of them did not vote in 2020. That sounds like success to me.
Okay, I'm going to play the last part of that one more time. I want you to listen to two things. Listen to the number of early votes and listen to the 800,000 number that had never voted before. So let's listen to that.
As thousands of people, we focused on low propensity voters that we knew if we could get them into the ballot box, they would vote for Donald Trump. And we got over 4 million people to vote early in this election. And of those 4 million people, 800,000 of them did not vote in 2020. That sounds like success to me.
Okay. So a lot of folks have listened to you and I for the last couple of years, maybe longer than that, and know that we don't bring out stuff unless we've got the receipts in hand. So I'm going to show first where folks can actually go verify what we're going to show them on their own if they choose to. This is the Georgia Secretary of State election results website. And on here, you can choose any one of the elections over the past 16 or I guess 20 years. And we're going to look at 2024 and we're going to look at 2020. And the way you do that is you look at results, you pick the year, and then if you go up here to the upper right, you'll see a click box or click connect that will allow you to download reports. When you click on that, it will give you the opportunity to download the information for, in this case, the 2024 election. And you can see for each type of voting. So we have four ways people can vote in Georgia. Advanced voting, advanced in person. We have election day. So that's when you go stand in line on election day. Absentee by mail and provisional. So you heard McKoon say they drove 4 million early votes. Now, when you heard that, did that sound like they were taking credit for 4 million votes for Trump? Kind of sounded that way, didn't it? Except Trump didn't get 4 million early votes. The reality, according to the reports from the Secretary of State, was the total early voting was 3.741 million. Of that, Trump got 1.918 and Harris got 1.804. Okay. So right away, there's something not quite lined up here. When you hear something, you are filling in the rest of the sentence in your mind. And depending on the way people voice certain things, you will naturally make a connection between, well, gosh, we must have gotten 4 million votes early for Trump. No, you really didn't. But it sounded like that, didn't it? Now let's go one step further and take a look at the total. Now keep in mind, it isn't even quite 4 million, but you could make the argument that, well, that's pretty close to 4 million. But look at what's included in there, all of the early voting that occurred. And so why would that be the yardstick to take credit for? Well, really shouldn't be. What was the actual growth? Well, there's an easy way to find that too. We take a look, and this is going to be small, but we're going to post this on the Georgia Record tomorrow so that you can take your own look at this. But here's, again, 2024, the same chart that I just showed you here, just scrunched down so we can add some other analysis to it. So let me bring it up on my other screen so I can walk you through the details. All right. So if we add 2020 to this chart, what does that show? Well, there's the various types of voting that were accomplished or completed in 2020. Again, this all comes, and you can see it here at the bottom. The source is the Georgia Secretary of State election results website, 2020 and 2024 results. You can download them yourself. For 2024, it shows that Trump won by 115,100. And for 2020, it shows that Trump unfortunately lost, according to these numbers, by 12,670. Now recall that McKoon said, well, we drove 4 million early votes. Remember that? We're going to play it again in a minute. Drove 4 million early votes. Who voted for whom in those early votes? Well, isn't that a surprise? One, the early votes again were not just 4 million for Trump. In fact, bizarrely so, Trump's increase between 2020 and 2024 is 497,000 and change. Kamala Harris's increase in early voting between 2020 and 2024 was 553,604. In other words, Kamala Harris's votes in early voting grew more than Trump over those 4 years. Why would Chairman McKoon be taking credit, one, for 4 million votes, because that's the entire 4 million votes that were cast? Why would he be taking credit as if that won the race for Trump, when in fact that pushed Trump actually a bit further behind? Kamala Harris's voting in early voting increased more. You can, again, if you go down to the bottom, you can confirm the results. 115,000 win in 2024, 12,670 loss in 2020. And all that we're doing on the right-hand column is comparing the first column to the second and showing whether things increased or decreased. So the reality here is, yes, early voting did increase. It increased 1,046,000 between the 2 years, between the two elections, pardon me. What decreased was absentee voting. It went from 1.3 million to 283,000. So you dropped 1 million votes in change here, and you gained 1 million votes in change in early voting. That doesn't sound necessarily like success to me. That sounds like things happened largely because Trump drove them himself, and likely because the Trump Force 47 folks drove them. But why would I be taking a victory lap on driving early voting and driving it as if it won the vote for, or won the election for Trump? That's not what happened. Folks need to look at this and remember that sometimes when you get told things, you're getting some of the story, but in fact, you have to watch Don't watch the hand that's in front of you. Be watching the other hand. Check your data, and you will find out what's really going on.
You know,
Okay.
Bill, I had just a vision in my head when he was speaking there in the red blazer that from Caddyshack, you know, I want to do good. I mean, it was kind of just that image of it's just bizarre. Anyway, go ahead.
It is. I want to play this one more time. I want you to listen to it, and then I want you to look at this data one more time. But then we're going to go on to one other factor that we need to take into account here.
Thousands of people. We focused on low propensity voters that we knew if we could get them into the ballot box, they would vote for Donald Trump. And we got over 4 million people to vote early in this election. And of those 4 million people, 800,000 of them did not vote in 2020. That sounds like success to me.
Well, it sounds like something to me, but it doesn't sound like success. So let's go on to the second thing he said. It was earlier in the earlier in his discussion, and he talks about every office, every Trump Force 47 person, they were paid by the Georgia GOP, and the offices were opened by the Georgia GOP. That sounds as if they're paying for and funding all of that activity, doesn't it? However, when you go back and look at the data, we're using Transparency USA. You can see that a lot of money was brought into the coffers, but where did it come from? Well, the reality is that it came largely from the Republican National Committee, Trump Force 47 Committee, Donald J. Trump Campaign, and the National Republican Senatorial Committee. They were the ones to pay for all this stuff. And Trump Force 47, to many, is clearly there because they're paying a large portion, if not all, if not perhaps more than 100% of the salaries and other things associated with the Trump Force 47 folks. Do we know every penny on that? No, but it's very clear who's paying for this stuff. And again, to take a victory lap on something someone else is paying for seems, I'll call it disingenuous, and I think I'm being kind with that analysis. So that again tells you, if you want truth, you need to check the facts, and then you'll have truth. And that is one of the reasons why when David Cross talks about making sure the reports, making sure those things are available to Georgia GOP members and others every month up on the website so that they can see what's going on, that means something here. There's a distinct difference between what's going on, and the next thing we're going to cover is going to bring that out in very specific relief. So we talked about this earlier with in our conversation with David. This is Amy Kremer. She is the RNC National Committee woman from Georgia, elected during the state convention last year, and one of the top three officers in the entire Georgia GOP. When they go to represent Georgia at the RNC, there's three people that are included. Amy Kremer is one of them. McKoon is another. But she sent 2 weeks ago an email asking for information regarding these strange charges, but asking for real data in terms of who are the people involved? Where is this coming from? Why aren't we getting answers to this? And she sent 2 pages of letter going through, who spent this, who was on this trip, why are we paying for Best Media to help coach people and get people on certain television shows, who's benefiting from that. She sent this letter first week of May. As of her release, I believe it was yesterday, she had no response. No response. It's wrong, doesn't really cover it in this case. Here you have one of the top 3 people in the Georgia GOP asking for information and answers. No response. And she sent this to Josh McKoon and Karen Henschel, I believe she's called a accounting director or finance director or something like that. But the person that actually does their FEC filings and the books and everything. No response. Okay, so unless you're really not paying attention, right about now, you should be saying to yourself, wait a minute, something's really wrong. Because when one of the top 3 people in the GOP asks for information, they should get a very quick response, if not immediate. And they've got none in 2 weeks. So much so that she issued a follow-up. Oh, and I don't have that with me, but she issued a follow-up short note saying, is anybody going to respond to this? So you will find this detailed as well on the Georgia Record. We actually have this up now, and we found it so egregious that we just put the issue right in the title. You know, she's issued these questions, issued them to Josh McKoon and Karen Henschel, and 2 weeks later, no response. If people aren't paying attention, now is the time that they need to start. Something is wrong. You can see it. You can smell it. You can see the approach is getting defensive. They're shutting down. I've been told that certain people are asking questions and they're getting fewer and fewer answers from within the GOP offices. There's trouble here, and we are not kidding. So this is the reason we wanted to bring this forward. We believe that people are asking for truth, and they're getting sleight of hand.
Yeah.
They're not getting what they're asking for. So with that, if you want to take a break, we can do that, and then we'll bring in our next guest.
Yeah. So our financial advisor at CDM is David Cross, well known to all of you, but you may not know that he's a great resource to kind of a sounding board to find out what you should do with your financial future. If you have a death, a divorce, sale of a company, whatever in your life, he's a good resource. So give him a call. Let's run an ad from him, please.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Okay, let's go.
All right, very good. We're going to welcome in Hank Sullivan. Hank, thank you so much for making time tonight.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You have been a busy writer, researcher over the last, couple of years or more, but especially this last week. I think you've brought out 2 new Substacks that speak to, they're kind of right along the path of what we covered already this evening. There is something very, very wrong. There is there appears to be an agenda that is not in line with Georgians and especially GOP members' best interest, and it seems to be trying to hide the facts underneath some sleight of hand. So with that, tell us about your latest writings, please.
Okay, well, I've got one out this week, and but I'll have a second one out this week as well. The one that I put out Sunday night is one that is entitled "How Despot Josh McKoon Has Consistently Violated the Most Sacred Rules of the Georgia Republican Party and Run It as a Tin-Pot Third World Dictator." And I was asked earlier today, isn't that kind of strong? well, actually, it's not. I thought about, well, what has he been acting like? Well, he's acting like a tin-pot third world dictator. Well, what do? Well, they make decisions on their own. They run the show with an iron hand. They don't take advice. They don't seek other authorities. They make all of the decisions, and that's what Josh McKoon has been doing. He's the one that's making all of these decisions. To put that in perspective, if you look at the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Josh McKoon, the chairman, gets authority from 4 different places. The first one is in the rules. So if the rules allow him to do something or empower him to do something, then he can certainly do it. Second thing is the state convention. The state convention can create pass resolutions. And in those resolutions, they can formulate policy, and they can authorize the chairman to execute the policy. when the convention is not in session and the state committee is in session, which is about 160 or so people, if I understand correctly, then they have all of the authority, and they are the ones that have to authorize the chairman to initiate any new policies. If they are not in session, then that power defaults to the state executive committee. The state executive committee is 28 people. It's not just a chairman, it is 28 people. And those 28 people have all of the authority of the party, while the convention and the state committee are not in session. But Josh McKoon has not been calling either of those bodies, meaning the state committee or the state executive committee, into session. The last time the state executive committee was in session was last August. So every policy that he has initiated, well, virtually every policy that he's initiated since last August, is something that is on his own authority. And in many cases, he's not authorized under the rules to do that. One big case in point is this 9-page NDA that he sent out to all of the statewide party candidates. That 9-page NDA is not authorized. It has to either come from the rules, it has to come from the convention, it has to come from the state committee, or it has to come from the state executive committee. And none of those entities authorize that NDA. So who authorized the NDA? Well, let's look at that. The NDA is a contract. It's not just simply, hey, you need to do all this and you need to sign right here. No, it's actually a contract. And I'm a contractor. I've been a contractor for 40 years. So this all makes perfect sense to me, what he did. So there's a place on this NDA for the signature of the candidate. And then there's a place on it for someone from the Republican Party to sign it as the promisee. You have the promisor, I promise not to do this, and the promisee is the one who receives these promises. Well, who is this promisee? And I wrote in this, I'm willing to bet that any of the people who have signed this have not received their fully executed contract back, because the person who would sign this, that would be Josh McKoon. So here's how we just imagine.
I can actually show this for you if you would like. Here's the bottom of that agreement. This is what you're referring to, yes?
Great. So just imagine, let's say Joe Biden's in office, and Joe Biden says to Donald Trump that, yeah, you can run, but if you actually want to advertise to the voters, you're going to have to sign this contract with me. And if I think that you've violated any of the requirements in this contract, I and the federal government, in this case, it's the Georgia Republican Party, can sue you for $25,000 for each and every offense that we say that you have transgressed. This a contract. The reason why they did this and made this into a contract is because they're in the contract. There is a what is the clause? The clause is the oh crap. Anyway,
are we talking about liquidated damages?
Yeah, so liquidated damages. I'm sorry. There's a liquidated damages clause in this contract, which means that they don't have to prove that there are any damages to the Georgia Republican Party. All they have to do is show that you did whatever is prohibited in the contract, and they get $25,000 for each time that you may have done that, or can convince a jury that you did that. So here it is. We have a David Cross he's got the contract with Josh McKoon signing for the Georgia Republican Party in order to be able to receive the information he needs to market his campaign to the delegates. This doesn't fly. None of this flies. It's not authoritative. None of it was authorized by the state executive committee or the state committee. It's not in the rules, and Josh McKoon is the one who came up with this. You can't do that.
Well, there's another question in this too that you haven't even touched on yet, and that is, as you say, it's a contract. So Josh must be using the delegate list, because I've gotten, and then many people have gotten, text messages and emails and other things as a delegate. Who would be the other person signing this from the Georgia GOP?
Well, that would be Josh McKoon.
But you can't have the same person sign both lines, can you?
No. On the promisor would be the individual with the candidate who's running for an office.
What if that's Josh McKoon?
Well,
that's
okay.
my point.
Okay. Yeah. So here it is. Josh McKoon has been he's received all the delegates on the list. He has all of their emails. I've been receiving them. You've been receiving them. Everybody's been receiving these mailers from Josh McKoon. But Josh McKoon has signed a contract
like
with himself, representing himself as the candidate, signing a contract with himself, the chairman, representing the GOP, with the power to sue himself if he happens to violate. You see how ridiculous this is?
It's like clown world ridiculous.
It is beyond the pale that anyone would have to deal with something like this. All they need to do is be able to campaign to the delegates, get the delegate list. That's all they want to use it for. They're not going to be using it for some kind of private use beyond that. And yet the reason, you got to imagine this, the reason why Josh McKoon would not want them to have the list is because he doesn't want them to be able to campaign against him. This is so obvious, it's not even funny. This is tin pot dictator stuff. This is how they deal with things in third world countries. This is how they maintain power in third world countries, and that's why I entitled this piece exactly as I did, because this is how a tin pot dictator works.
So who signed the? Well, how does the signature block read? Facing the Georgia GOP. Is it the Georgia GOP Inc.? I couldn't quite see it there.
Well,
and here's the front page, by the way, just before we can't miss this one.
Yeah.
Since you get to the, tin pot third world dictator. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
It is the first line is the GAGOP, Georgia Republican Party Inc. by name and title, and it's left open. So they sent these out and they expected the receiving parties, and many have, to sign it as their name and their title. Well, their title would be candidate, I suppose. But I've spoken with two of the candidates who did send it back in, and neither one of them had gotten their fully executed copy back. Why? Because it would have to be signed by Josh McKoon. There's no one else authorized to sign this. You could say that, Alex Kaufman might sign it for the GAGOP, but all he would be doing would be signing for Josh McKoon. So this is a Josh McKoon third world dictator move that has created this. It has there's no authority to it whatsoever. Yet he's in control of who gets the delegates and who doesn't, and he's in control of dispatching his general counsel to sue anybody that he says violated the contract. I mean, this is beyond what I would even imagine. We've seen a lot. We've seen a lot in the last several years. This is probably the worst I've seen of any effort by one individual candidate to suppress the votes for another individual candidate. It's beyond
in his own race. Yeah.
In his own race. Yes.
And against his favored Sleight members.
Yeah. So Republicans need to know this is how your Republican Party is operating under Josh McKoon. This is a junta. They have taken over the Georgia Republican Party. They're portraying it as a corporation. It can't be a corporation because corporations don't have ballot access. Oh, and I heard him today. You might have seen this video where he's talking about, there's really good reasons to be a corporation because of liability. Well, you would think if they were concerned about liability, they would take out a liability insurance policy. Is there a liability insurance policy? Well, according to the authoritative people, no, there's no liability insurance policy. Why don't they just cover the liabilities with an insurance policy rather than creating a corporation that doesn't have ballot access, and then miraculously somehow they get ballot access anyway, going through the Secretary of State's office? That we've all got a lot of confidence in them.
One of the characteristics we've seen is this changing of stories, which is a danger signal big time for me. One example is when he was running for chairman, he created that Seven Mountains video, and in there, one of the first things was, "Hey, the corporate thing, it's a mess. Members just want to be members," and he alludes to that he's going to get it cleared up. Then, just as you just said, now he's trying to come up with reasons why it's a good idea to have a corporation. Doesn't address the fact that, oh, by the way, a corporation doesn't have ballot access. Oh, by the way, a corporation doesn't have to answer to any members. This corporation is defined as not having any members. So none of that gets addressed. Then you start seeing these odd diversions or ways of avoiding answering questions. When would you avoid answering a question? When you're not required to. When are you not required to? When you're in a corporation.
That's right.
All of a sudden, the pieces begin to fit together actually very nicely.
Well, you saw where our national committee woman, third ranking officer in the Georgia Republican Party, has been asking all kinds of questions about different expenditures. Mm-hmm. The reason why they wanted to be a corporation with no members is because members of a corporation get to see the books. They have every right to see the books. So if you have a corporation with no members, you also have no right to see the books. So you can ask all day long. You're not going to get the answers that you want.
Or you can ask, and 2 weeks later, you don't get the answers you want. Huh?
Well,
sorry, Todd, go ahead.
If you think it through, you have an NDA that's being signed by the corporation being sent out by a corporation that has no members, but they're asking the members to sign it to the corporation that has no members. So it's quite fascinating.
It truly is. The deeper you go in this, the more disbelief that this is still happening.
I can only hope that we're getting to the stage where folks that were maybe not paying close enough attention and thought, well, there really isn't anything to all this stuff. I can't imagine that they're sitting back now, given everything we just talked about, even just on the show, and saying, oh no, everything's fine. It can't be fine. You've got information being hidden. You've got ranking members of the Georgia GOP who can't get an answer. That can't happen. You don't have an organization that's running by the rules at that point. And it's
none of the rules.
Troubling.
No accountability with these people. None of these rules. And I also included in this last Substack revisited the way that they took out first Vice Chairman Brian Pritchard. They didn't follow the rules. There were no rules that they followed. Josh McKoon came up with his own rules, and he's the one who authorized this entire thing, this entire charade to take part. And I tell you, if you're a state committee person, and if you were there, you really ought to be ashamed that you didn't do your homework to understand that this was a railroad job in the beginning, and that Josh McKoon had no authority whatsoever to pull him and put him before trial. The only people who could have done that would have been the state executive committee, which he never called into session. And had that been the case, let's say that they did call the state executive committee into session, there were no rules for a trial in the Georgia Republican Party rules. And so Rule 11.3 says if there are no rules for whatever event needs to transpire, then that defaults to Robert's rules. Well, if you're going to hold a trial under Robert's rules, it's the purpose of that is to ensure fairness to the individual who's on trial. There are onerous steps that have to go through, from forming an investigative committee. The investigative committee's got to take down testimony. They've got to make it into a report. Then they issue a resolution with recommendations that would go to the full state executive committee. The state executive committee would have to call together a meeting in session to decide what to, if anything, to do with all this. And until they do that, and until they empower the chairman to hold a trial for this individual, he has no authority whatsoever to do any of that. And that is what happened to the first vice chairman, Brian Pritchard. That is how they drummed him out of office. And it's a shame. It is shameful that,
I've wondered a long time, as you have a lot of good people in the, I wouldn't say the upper ranks, but the middle ranks of the GOP who just want to do a good job. And why are they ignoring a lot of this? I think some of it is many of them are just have the history of the Reagan Republicans and they think everything's going to be fine. And and maybe some of them are involved in the corruption, but why aren't these people, why don't they have the intellectual curiosity to look at this? Do you have any idea?
Well, here's my answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being stupid.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I remember years ago being stupid enough to trust these people.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people out there that are still just trusting that all is well, that everything is happening, that, okay, we got Trump elected by 115,000 votes. It should have been 500,000 votes had the Republican Party had been doing its work, doing the job. They didn't do anything to get Donald Trump elected. He was the best candidate they were ever going to have in the state of Georgia, and they only won by 115,000 votes. And that doesn't bode well for the future. Not if this junta stays in control of the Georgia Republican Party. They've got to go.
That's right. One of the concerns now, and it relates a little bit to what you just covered. The state convention holds almost all the power when it is in session. Is that right? They can do a lot of things at the state convention.
Statewide jurisdiction while it's in session.
So that is coming up the weekend of June 5th. And the challenge is McKoon and company picked Dalton, Georgia, about as far up in the corner of the state as you can get as the location to hold this, which makes it difficult for many people across Georgia to make it there. They might have a 5, maybe 6 hour drive, probably have to come through Atlanta to get up to Dalton. Yet that is the location where this can be fixed if it's going to be fixed.
Yep.
And it's the call to action is very clear. It's simple, actually. If you are a delegate, a state delegate, or an alternate, it's simple. Make plans to be there and be there. And if you are allowed to be elevated, meaning to go from being an alternate to a delegate, take that step and vote for whom you wish. But be there and help make this get fixed. There's really no other way at the moment that I can see.
It's a numbers game. We got to get more people against them than they're for them, and that's how you win. Right. That's the only way to do it. So yes, we got a lot of great people, a lot of great Republican grassroots, not just the vocal people, but the folks that are really just hardworking folks that want good things for their state and their nation. Well, it's time to rise up. It's time to do a little traveling. If you're a delegate, don't leave this opportunity without showing up. Half a life is just showing up. I hope you'll be there. Help us out.
It's perhaps telling and prophetic that Trump in the last couple of weeks posted a tweet or a truth saying, evil can't take over unless good people stand back and allow it.
That's right.
And it seems to fit this circumstance very, very closely, I believe, because in many cases you can see certain things being done that I do not call just bad. I think they're evil. And people need to stand up and step up against it. And I've talked to many, and I know that they're willing to do it and are planning to go. But it's that next echelon of folks that either haven't quite seen how bad this is, or aren't sure that they're willing to make that commitment. And we simply ask that they do that. Join with the folks that are stepping up.
Somebody asked me real quick, why did Trump endorse Josh McKoon? Do you have any idea what 1 minute of Donald Trump's time is worth? This man has the world on his shoulders. In many ways, this world is going to go one way or the other way because of what Donald Trump is going to do. Do you think that he gave this endorsement 10 seconds? No, there's no way he would have given this 10 seconds. Someone put this in front of him, said, hey, we need to go. You won Georgia. We need to get McKoon back in there. He signed it. He did not spend any time with this. He couldn't. He doesn't have time to do this. So it's all in the cards. That's how they play the game, and that's how he came about endorsing.
And for those that don't think, he's still got some folks that are not acting and advising in his and America's best interest. Just look at the folks that we reported, before the end of the campaign, before the election. Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita being reported to have been padding their own coffers with ad money at a higher rate so that they could get service fees or whatever back. People getting endorsements that clearly have not acted in his best interest. Lindsey Graham and others, Tom Tillis. So, this is not the only instance. And very frankly, one of the things that's come out of this is there's been a lot of attention on McKoon, and with more attention comes more visibility. With more visibility comes the disclosure of things like we reported tonight.
So my next Substack is Josh McKoon, the actor. We're going to look at Josh McKoon, the actor. He is an actor. All of this is an act. None of this is sincere, and I'm going to show you why. That's hanksullivan.substack.com.
Boy, that is a great tease.
That is something we're seeing all over the world, from Zelensky to Biden to Obama to Macron. We're seeing that everywhere. It's a symptom of the globalist scourge, if you will. So good deal. Look forward to read that one.
Hank, thank you so much for being with us, my friend.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, stay with us while we close the show. Todd, anything else to cover?
No, that's it. Great show, and we'll be back Sunday at 2. Catch me tomorrow morning, 10 to noon on the Skiff, Monday through Friday Eastern. We're going to have some great guests tomorrow. We got Darren Gobb to talk about what Pete Hegseth is doing on the Afghanistan review, and then a huge hour on the vaccine reveals, a second hour. So
that's great.
Join us tomorrow.
Watch us on Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. And when Hank's next Substack comes out, we will be reprinting that and putting it on the Georgia Record and pointing you back to his Substack for those that aren't yet a member. We would recommend you subscribe so that you get immediate notification. He's got thousands of folks watching him with good reason. So we will see you again on Sunday, and thanks for being with us.
Sure.